Happy Victory Tuesday, Falcons fans. I hope you guys also lost your voice after that Drake London go-ahead touchdown. One of the best parts about winning in the NFL is just soaking up all the content online the next day, reliving the win, which we're going to do on today's episode. And we're also going to look at a little bit of drama that came out of the broadcast related to the Falcons. But if you woke up a winner today, which if you're watching this video, you sure did, hit that thumbs up button. If you always like our content, then don't stop now. If you've never liked a video of ours before, make this the first one. Let's get to 1,800 likes for number 18, Kirk Cousins, helping the Falcons complete the comeback last night. Now let's open up by talking about some of the drama, some of the tea that came out of the broadcast yesterday, and then we'll look at my top 5 standouts from the win. But Bill Belichick was on the ESPN ManningCast, and he did not shy away from talking about the Falcons. He talked about the, of course, Super Bowl, and here's what he said during that. I remember Blank down on the sideline in the fourth quarter, celebrating when they were ahead. He's a pretty good dresser. Arthur always looks sharp, but he was down there on the sideline, and we were getting beat, and I was like, Jesus. Now, that to me isn't very juicy when it comes to drama, but this next part was in the middle of the game when Darnell Mooney made a nice catch. He said, one of those free agents they signed illegally, Mooney, Woerner, and of course Cousins, that they contacted early, got fined for, lost a draft choice, and all of that. Now, Bill didn't say anything, factually incorrect, but the tone I detected when he was talking about the, tampering allegations, I sensed a little bit of saltiness from Bill Belichick. These players, these coaches, they are the biggest competitors that are on the face of the earth. So yeah, when Bill Belichick gets passed up for a head coaching gig, he's probably going to be a little bit upset about it. He's probably going to be a little bit butthurt about it. And I felt like that came through in the broadcast on the ManningCast. So Bill Belichick confirmed salty over getting passed up for the Falcons head coaching gig. Now, next up on the show, I want to talk about the win last night and the 5 biggest standouts I noticed when rewatching the game today. But we are so close to reaching a pretty big milestone in the YouTube world, 25,000 subscribers. So 126 of you watching that are not subscribed, go ahead and do so right now. Help us reach the big 2.5 in subscribers. Let's talk about the win last night, and let's just relive it all together for a little bit here. And the 5 players that really jumped out to me. Now, there is going to be a few guys I leave off this list that had great games, but I want to focus on these 5 guys in particular. So, coming in at number 5, Jessie Bates. Not only because he made the game-sealing interception at the end, which we'll look at closely in a minute, but altogether, Jessie Bates had a really strong game. 12 tackles, a tackle for loss, a couple pass breakups, and then, of course, that interception at the end. But Jessie Bates, if we actually go back on the film earlier in the game, he had a really important pass breakup, which prevented a touchdown. So let's roll the tape here for a second. This is earlier in the game, Jalen Hurts in the red zone, throwing to Devontae Smith, and you can see the ball has just been released from Hurts. And Devontae Smith, he's got, what's that you think, 3 yards of separation? I wouldn't say 10 times out of 10 that's a touchdown, but 8 times out of 10 that's a touchdown. Here's the issue. Jessie Bates, the all-pro safety, is that 2 times out of 10. And just look at how quickly Bates closes in on the receiver, forces a pass breakup, and the Eagles ultimately turn it over on downs here, and Jessie Bates prevents what would have been probably one of those game-winning touchdowns in retrospect with the final score outcome. Now, let's get to the play of the game for Bates, right? This is the final 30 seconds, and the Eagles, only down 1, just need a field goal. So they are about 20 yards away from Jake Elliott field goal range. And right now, Jalen Hurts in the pocket, in a good pocket, still has the football until Caden Ellis starts to crash down on him. And look where Jessie Bates is standing right here. He's standing in between the hash marks at about the 31-yard line. Now, let's fast forward to Jessie Bates making the game-sealing interception. He's basically at the sideline right now, pretty much at the 29-yard line. So for him to just close that gap as quickly as he did and make a play on the ball that is just heading towards the dirt for an incomplete pass, That's why you paid him all that money last year, because he makes plays like that in the biggest moments. Again, a lot of guys had great games last night. I thought Richie Grant played pretty well when his number was called. Offensive line looked good. Grady Jarrett had a nice night. But Jessie Bates, when the pressure was there, came up with the biggest play. Let's move on to standout number 4. I'm going to go with Matthew Judon. I just want to highlight Judon because through 2 weeks so far, Atlanta has gotten the pass rusher they were hoping to get when they made that trade with New England. Last night, he records a sack on Jalen Hurts, the only member of the Falcons pass rush to get to Hurts. He would lead this team in pressures after Grady Jarrett, was it? He was all over that Eagles offensive line, like a lot of guys on that Falcons defensive line. I felt like Atlanta in the trenches felt disrespected offensively and defensively from week 1 against the Steelers. And Judon and the rest of this crew responded on the road. Monday Night Football. No one's picking Atlanta. Everyone's on the Eagles. The public, the money, the analyst, everyone. But Judon and this Falcons defensive line, they tuned out the noise and they responded in a big way, harassing Hurts several times throughout the night. So, before we look at the next couple of standouts, I do want to give a quick shout out to our wonderful sponsor, Game Time. If you want to go watch the Falcons hopefully beat the Chiefs Week 3 Sunday Night Football, you should listen up because Game Time is giving the Dirty Birds $20 off their first purchase when you use the code CHATSPORTS. Now, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks. And what Game Time Picks does is it filters out all the stuff you're not looking for and just gives you the best deals, like dollar for dollar, pound for pound, just great bargains for what the price is and where the seats are. So download Game Time today to take the guesswork out of buying tickets. And when you download the app and create an account, remember to use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, remember to use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. I put all this information for you guys because I love you in the comments and description of today's video. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Coming in at number 3, I tossed and turned between Darnell Mooney and Drake London, but I want to show some love to Darnell Mooney because that Drake London touchdown at the end of the game is not possible if not number 1. Darnell Mooney, the leading receiver for the Atlanta Falcons, 3 grabs, 88 yards, 1 touchdown, a pivotal touchdown late in the third quarter to kind of get the Falcons just mentally in that game, right? The score was close at that point. It gives them a 10-9 lead, I think, at that moment. But psychologically, Kirk Cousins fired up, and all of a sudden you felt like that Falcons sideline was like, we can really beat these guys. We can really go into their barn and just knock them around for 4 quarters and come out with a win. And I think Darnell Mooney, not just for coming up with 2 huge grabs on that last drive to march Atlanta's offense down the field, but that touchdown earlier. I mean, he spins out of a tackle from C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and he somersaults forward front flips into the end zone for what's going to be a crucial score. So after Darnell Mooney, I want to go with Kirk Cousins at number 2. I could have put Kirk at number 1, but I think when you see why I've got number 1, who it is at number 1, you'll understand Kirk Cousins at number 2 makes a lot of sense. But Kirk Cousins just engineering a game-winning touchdown drive like he has done so many times in his career in the last couple of minutes of the game, 6 plays, 70 yards, 1 minute 5 seconds, and 7 points at the end. It was a masterclass. It was vintage Kirk Cousins. It was the guy that the Falcons went out and gave $180 million to because they felt like we're not going to get that from anyone on our current roster and Desmond Ridder or Taylor Heineke. We're not going to find that from anyone else in free agency. We are paying Kirk Cousins this big lump of money because we feel like he is the best man for moments like this. 20 for 29, 241 yards, 2 touchdowns, a dramatic turnaround from week 1. I mean, hand up, I was not calling for Kirk Cousins to get benched because of a bad game in the first game of his Falcons career, but because he didn't look healthy The guy was a statue in the pocket. And credit to Zach Robinson and this Atlanta Falcons coaching staff for installing a great game plan. I mean, they open up with Kirk under center, play action. The only question is, I don't know what took them so long, why they did not do it in week 1, but at least they finally came to their senses in week 2 and not later on in the year. But a great turnaround from this coaching staff and the game plan for Atlanta, and Kirk Cousins looked 100 times better than he did in the first week of the season. And I think mentally, I think Kirk saw, hey, I can still do this. I know coming off an Achilles injury, that's a tough injury to bounce back from, especially at the old age of 36 years old in the NFL. But I think he's proved to himself, I still got this. I'm still Captain Kirko. I can still march down the field. That was a huge drive for Kirk Cousins, and we have Saquon Barkley and Nick Sirianni to thank for that, for getting Cousins' mojo back, for getting his swagger back. All right, let's move on to our final standout. I've got to go with Bijan Robinson. Yeah, he did not come up with any big play on that final drive, but the Falcons are not in a position to go down the field and win the game, if not for what number 7 did for the previous 59 minutes of that game. 97 yards on the ground from 14 carries. That's an average of 6.9. Double nice. Very nice. Triple nice. 4 grabs for 25 yards. Mark it 2 straight games to open up the season where Bijan goes over 100 all-purpose yards. By the way, that was the second highest career average of his career. The highest was that Jags game in London last year. But regardless, Bijan Robinson, he was a nightmare for the Eagles. Have you guys seen the clip, by the way, of when he goes out to run a route, but he hits a little chip on the defensive end coming to Caleb McGarry and just flattens an Eagles defensive end? Every single time Bijan got the ball, it just felt like an automatic first down, which, by the way, he had 5 first downs on 14 carries. Just think about that for a moment. Like, when you really get down to the fundamentals of football, we're talking about moving the sticks and picking up first downs. More than 1 in every 3 times Bijan got the rock, first down Atlanta. I mean, just the in-the-moment, deflating experience that is for a defense. To go, this guy gets the rock, well, we're going to be on the field for another 3 plays because a first down's coming our way. Robinson was prolific. He looked like a top 3 running back. And not that anyone really doubted that he could get to that point, but we were kind of waiting for a game like this where you go, that's why you picked him 8th overall. When everyone wants to say you don't use a first-round pick on a running back anymore, you don't pay a running back anymore, Bijan Robinson just showed you he's the exception. He's the chosen one. Bijan still not just has it, but of course, he is showing us that he can be a true number 1 back in the NFL. I want to give one quick honorable mention to Mike Hughes. Mike Hughes was not a guy that a lot of fans, went into the season with big expectations for, right? He was battling with Clark Phillips for that starting cornerback gig opposite of A.J. Terrell, and he was probably just going to be a under-the-radar defender on this team. I'll tell you what, through 2 weeks so far, I don't know if anyone has impressed me more in a good way than Mike Hughes. Last night, targeted once, no completions, 5 tackles, a pass breakup, 49 snaps. I mean, Hughes was a menace. So we actually have some really cool tape to look at from what Mike Hughes was able to do. And again, when you don't make an interception, you don't really get a lot of attention. But I want you guys to look at this big play here. This is a 4th down play for the Eagles in the first half. And Mike Hughes is all over a tight end, breaking up a pass and perfectly timing the contact so he doesn't get a flag, but instead it's a huge pass breakup. All right, let's look at another play here. He's not only making great plays in coverage. So if you see in the green, you got D. Alford. He's going to go on a nice DB blitz. And Jalen Hurts does a great job of recognizing this. What do you do when you get a blitz? You throw into the blitz. So what does Jalen Hurts do? He sees his tight end, Dallas Goedert, and he immediately gets the ball out to him. A lot of times that's going to be a really successful play. But this is what the Eagles didn't account for. Mike Hughes and the rest of this Falcons defense rallying to the football here, bringing up a 3rd down, limiting the damage. Mike Hughes, he's probably got, Dallas Goedert probably has 30, 35 pounds on Mike Hughes. And here comes a little scrappy outside corner. to blow up this play and keep it to 5 or 6 yard gain? When you start stacking those little plays one after another, as an offense, it makes your life miserable because you feel like you can never get the big one, the big explosive play. So A.J. Terrell had his hands full with Devontae Smith for much of the night. But everyone else, not a whole lot to talk about. You could thank Mike Hughes for that, by the way. So those are the top 5 standouts. I also just want to show some love to the offensive line. I mean, I probably should have included them, but I know that the big 5 guys up front, they're not going to be the sexiest stats to talk about. But I felt like that unit responded so well after TJ Watt and the Steelers just took their lunch money and pantsed them at home in week 1. They went to Philly, a pretty ferocious front 4, with a lot of good Georgia Bulldogs on that defense, and they manhandled them. They pushed them around. Sure, the Eagles got their wins in every so often, but by and large, if you want to know who won in the trenches, it was Atlanta. Now, before we get on out of here, let's show some love to the Dirty Birds Club. We had an awesome watch party last night, and I think that's reflected by me not having a voice today. Jose Santana was in the chat all night. Ken Ballard, the biggest Saints hater on either side of the Mississippi. Trey 1222 hanging out with us in the postgame show. Jason Lindino, Reese Atkins, also part of our great postgame show. Archangel, the MVP of the chat every single time. Angry Liquid, Jeebus H. Christ, the MVP of our Week 2 watch party, and Dictator JC. Thank you guys so much for being such loyal members of the Dirty Birds Club. And if you guys are ready for more fun in Week 3, because that Sunday night matchup can't get here soon enough, and the Falcons can improve to 2-1, drop an ATL for me in the comment section.